Hello YouTubers, this is Mr. Lamb of God, and today I am going to be starting weird random blog videos. And today's segment is going to be about gauging your ears. Alright. Awkward pause. So, this is how it works. Normally, there are different methods. People who are really impatient and are searching for odd amounts of pain can actually, if they have big enough lobes, they take like a cookie cutter looking thing and just chop a hole in their ear, and that's called getting your ears punched. Now that, based on what I've heard, is extremely painful, so if you're not looking for pain, you can go with the easier direction, which is stretching them. Now how this works is, you start out with a normal sized earring, and that's like an 18 gauge, I think, and then you would move down to a 16, then a 14, then 12, 12, 10, 8, and it just goes in increments of 2 until you reach 00. Then some people go in millimeters, where it just goes from 00, it would go, I don't know, I don't go in millimeters normally. But you would go to a 7/16, I think. 7/16, maybe ½ inch. And then, yeah, it just keeps going in fractions. But fractions are stupid and no one needs to know how to use those. So, then, yeah, as I said, you keep going. I have 5/8. This is where I plan on stopping. I sized up to this earlier this week. And how gauging like this works is you use things called tapers. I have a bag of most of my plugs and tapers right here. This is actually the tapers I used to get up to my current size. They look like this. You can kind of take a look at that. It's got 2 rubber bands on here. It's pretty much just to trap your lobe in there so it doesn't slide out while you're doing things. These are not meant to keep in your ears. These are simply to just help you size up so you aren't just shoving a bigger thing in your ear. It's like a gradual change. So then what you do is you can put things called plugs in, which are just solid pieces of, they really make them out of different stuff. There's silicone plugs, there's acrylic plugs, there's steel plugs, stone plugs, wooden, really anything. I've made my own out of clay. It's pretty much just a matter of finding something that's hard and it can't be porous, because what can actually happen is your ears can grow into it, which would lead to some major medical problems. So, things you should know about stretching your ears: be very patient. Myself, I actually messed up in my earlier stages. I pierced my ears myself, because that's not very difficult to do or to care for if you have any clue what you're doing. I pierced them myself, and I started gauging weeks after. And you're supposed to wait like 6 months so your ears can actually heal before you start stretching them. So my first few up gauges were pretty painful. It's not supposed to hurt. If you're waiting long enough, it shouldn't hurt at all. Maybe just like a little stinging for a few minutes, and then it should go away. So for me, my gauging up until about 4, it was either 8 or 4, because I don't think I did a 6. You can jump sizes too. It's not recommended because you can blow out, which is where your ear tears instead of stretching, and that can result in having to just stop and go back to a normal ear piercing, or sometimes even those won't work and you have to get a different hole pierced. But, as I was saying, I didn't let my ears heal enough, so I was stretching a like unhealed hole. And that just ended up in me having to leave in a 4 gauge for like a month and a half or 2 months, which is horrible, because once you start gauging your ears, you're going to realize until you get to the point where you're pleased, you don't want to stop and you don't want to wait. So it's very important to wait. And if your ears start feeling like they're getting irritated, then just be patient with them, because even though they can heal, it's not a generally happy process for them. So just let them heal patiently. And for some people, gauging doesn't work right, and for others it works fine. Like for me, once I let my 4 gauge heal, I was just going up like every 3 weeks, and it worked fine for me. So it's pretty much dependent on each person, but also something I used, it's this really great stuff called vitamin E oil. It's just like an unscented, some is like really liquidy, some is more like a paste. Mine's more like a paste. And what I do is, after I take a shower, I take, well, normally I shower with these out, just to wash them out, because especially metal ones can start smelling pretty awful. Based on what I've heard, I don't really know, because I take mine out and wash them normally. So, what was I saying? Let's see. Oh yes. After I shower, I take these out and I leave them out for a few minutes and let my ears dry off. I dry them off with a towel, but then I let them like dry out the rest of the way for 5 minutes. Then I'll get some of the, just a really thin amount. You don't need like a glob by any means. You just put a thin layer of vitamin E oil on your ears and massage it in for a few minutes, and then you can leave them out for a little while. It helps it absorb better, and then you can put them in. If you leave them out for like 20 minutes, like I said, I up-gauged like 4 days ago, and for me, my taking out and putting in the vitamin E oil really helps. It's also really good for going up with. So I'd suggest using that instead of things like Neosporin, because what that can do is when it dries, it can get all crusty on your ears. I've tried it, it didn't really work that well for me. And it gets on your hands, and it doesn't stay with your skin as well as the vitamin E oil does. And plus, your skin naturally gives off vitamin E oil. It's just kind of giving it more of something that's already there. So it's a lot more healthy than Neosporin and stuff. So that's pretty much the end of my rant about ear gauging. It is not an evil thing like generally people see it as. I see people with gauges all the time, working places, working in retail places where they're in contact with people all the time. Some employers mind and some don't. So if you have a steady job, I would suggest asking your employer prior to getting them. Also make sure it's okay with your parents. If they're not okay with that sort of thing, then you probably should listen to them until you move out at least. Then it's pretty much up to you. My dad didn't really mind. So, that is that. Also, another option, if your workplace frowns upon said holes in ears, they make these things. They're silicone, and they are double flare plugs, which just means the flare is the little spot on the front. I don't know if you can really see it. It's raised up a little bit more so it doesn't fall out. How they are is in the back, they have a rubber band, mine do. You can get ones with 2 flares, or you can even get ones with 2 rubber bands and no flares. It's pretty much your personal preference. And they're silicone and they're skin tone colored. So for me, I had attached earlobes, well I still have them, but I had no earlobes prior to stretching. So for me, if I were to put the silicone plugs in right now, you probably at a 5-foot distance couldn't even tell I had gauges. So some people do that. I personally think that if I have to hide my gauges, then not really worth your time. So that is the end of my first rant. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be putting up more soon. I don't know, I might get some weekly basis going on here, or just put them up as I think of them. I have plenty more to go. Next video, I'll probably be talking about either my snakebite piercings, which are my 2 lip piercings, or my tattoo, which I just got a little while ago. I'll be talking about care for that and care for the lip piercings. Alright, well, peace out, YouTubers.